Okay, let's take a look at these and we'll go around the room. Remember, it's always okay to answer correctly with confidence, take a guess, or pass. Tim, we'll start with you. BCl3.
Boron trichloride.
Boron trichloride is correct. Jennifer?
Dinitrogen tetrafluoride.
Dinitrogen tetrafluoride. Now, remember, did you all spell fluoride correctly? It's Fluoride. No fluoride and no fluoride, right? HBr, Rebecca? Hydrogen bromide. Did anybody get fancy and put the monos in there? No, everybody's lazy too, like me, okay? It could have been monohydrogen monobromide. It could be monohydrogen bromide. It could be hydrogen monobromide. It could be hydrogen bromide. Doesn't matter if the mono's in or out. That's your preference. SCl4. Ren?
Sulfur tetrachloride.
Sulfur tetrachloride. Devin?
Carbon tetrachloride.
Carbon tetrachloride. Now, usually people find that going one way is easier than the other way for them. Sometimes people find naming things is easier. Some people find writing the formula is easier. You will have to do both. On the test, you will have 25 name this. 25 write the formula for this. That'll be on the test. People always want to know how many questions are on the test. Well, you tell me, is that 50 or is that 2 questions? I don't know. Cassandra? P4010. Terry?
B1F3.
And you don't have to write the one in there. You can. I usually don't, just out of laziness. How about the next one? Adam?
SCl2.
SCl2. Ricardo?
CL3.
ClI3. So everybody did those pretty quickly with the practice at your seats, and everyone seemed really confident. It seems very easy because we just talked about the rule and we're only looking at this type of compound. And it does seem straightforward. But I am telling you, it's not easy when there's 25 all jumbled up. As we move forward, you'll have to be able to look at a formula and sort out which set of rules do I use, and that is not easy. That gets very complicated. Now, there are a few compounds that fall into sort of a gray area where we look at them and they should be ionic because they have a metal and a nonmetal, but they really behave kind of like molecules. And tin tetrachloride or lead tetrachloride, which we would call tin 4 chloride and lead 4 chloride following the ionic rules, kind of fall into that gray area. For this class, we'll name them using the ionic rules, even though we may talk about them later as having some molecular properties. Now, there's always common names or non-systematic names, and it's okay to use these if you know a common name. Some examples you might know: ammonia, water, and phosphine. Phosphine is a gas that they use, to make people sick and kill them, so you might know it for that. Okay. So that's one type of compound. Now, there's another type of compound that is molecular, and these are organic compounds. And these organic compounds contain carbon, hydrogen, and maybe a few other things filled in. This class is general and inorganic. We talk a little bit about some organics, but you'll actually take an organic class where you just talk about carbon and hydrogen, a very small piece. And then maybe now and then oxygen, sulfur, nitrogen, and a halogen or two. But really, they're less than 10 elements. So different classes of organic compounds have different rules for nomenclature. For this class, we are going to talk only about hydrocarbons, things that contain carbon and hydrogen. And we're only going to talk about alkanes, things that have all single bonds and are completely saturated. So we have a different set of rules for these. we start by naming the number of carbon atoms using a prefix. Now, these are another set that you're going to have to learn, and they probably will not seem familiar to you, except that you might have heard of a few compounds in everyday life. One carbon is meth. You all know methane. It's natural gas that we burn in our homes if we have natural gas, right? 2 is ethane. Most people don't know of ethane. 3, propane. That's if you live in the country and you have a pig, you burn propane gas to heat your home. 4 is butane. Butane in your lighter, you know, you flick your Bic. You know those commercials from the 70s? Okay, you got to Google it. Just go on Google, flick your Bic. It's very hilarious. Commercials from the 70s. Okay, pent, again, that's 5. That's pretty familiar. Hex, you know, from a hexagonal nut or a hex nut or a hex wrench. Hept, again, that's a little odd, but a chemistry thing. Oct is 8, known is 9, and 10 is dec. So we are going to only deal with alkanes in this class. So if you have a hydrocarbon and I've asked you to name it, you can feel confident knowing it's an alkane. They have all single bonds. We write the formulas with carbon first and hydrogen last, and we name them for the number of carbon atoms using those prefixes. If it is an alkane, its name ends in ane. And we can tell its formula. Whatever number of carbons I have, X, I will have 2X plus 2 hydrogens. That's because it's completely saturated. You'll talk about that more later. You may come across